Hello there, and for this discussion, I'm joined by the Managing Director for Upstream Energy Capital with the Macquarie Group, and Nick Milne is with us. Nick, lovely to see you.
Great to see you as well, Eithne.
Thanks for joining us for this conversation in advance of Gastech 2023. And of course, LNG is going to be a key topic we're all going to be looking at. And when you think about LNG, really, how do you assess, I suppose, the re-emergence of the long-term supply agreements at the moment?
I think there's two trends which are really interesting in terms of outlook for discussions come September. The first is, over the last year, the emergence of a large wave of contracts from North America, where those contracts are obviously linked to a gas hub. And secondly, that long-term contracts have come back into favor, with majority of contracts being over a 15 to 20-year term. So looking ahead, what will the implications of that be for the market is an interesting question, which I think will be a topic of discussion in terms of whether that leads to better flexibility in terms of being able to reload and retrade volumes if more volumes are linked to gas hubs. And I think that will ultimately go to a discussion around the optimization of portfolios, particularly for the major players.
Let's take a look at the new projects that are in place at the moment, and particularly when it comes to making sure that there's adequate funding for these projects. Again, all with that backdrop of, ESG compliance. How is the situation right now?
The ESG compliance is really becoming business as usual particularly for long-term project finances, as people focus a lot more on the due diligence of ESG around projects as we look to lend longer term. The niche that's becoming quite interesting is the digitalization of the gas chain. And the thing that's interesting is the adoption of technology, big data, blockchain, to be able to bring the embodied carbon in an individual LNG cargo, with that ultimately being able to assist end buyers to fully manage the carbon content of a cargo.
And the digitalization of the gas chain and the digitalization in general is certainly going to mean a lot of different dynamics in the industry. So that's certainly going to be something we're all looking forward to. But also, when we look in recent years, the global energy trade flows have changed so much. Where do you see, I suppose, medium and indeed long-term prospects for the new relationships that are in place?
Medium term is hard to say. We've seen a lot of volatility and uncertainty in the last 12 months. The build out of new supply and receiving infrastructure is going to help provide stability to the market in terms of managing that. But what we've seen recently is the increase in prices leading to some demand destruction. And there's a balance of really 3 points. The first, energy security and rebalancing of portfolios, whether demand destruction on the back of COVID is long lasting in some of these markets. And then finally, the policy decisions around further electrification as people look for longer term, lower carbon energy policy, and how that will drive long-term demand in particularly in emerging economies.
And again, we look at the energy security that is so essential. And I think we've all learned a lesson around the world in the last year about that. But we also have to look at net zero commitments. We look at supply, we look at energy security, really pulling all this together. How effectively do you think that policy leaders, and indeed the industry has managed that in the last year, perhaps?
Well, I think the last year has really been a game changer on the back of in Milan, September last year, the Inflation Reduction Act was new news, and people were sort of working through that. I think what we'll see is similar legislation in other markets, helping to really drive a greater focus around carbon capture, storage, low carbon fuels, and that's an area of the program for Gastech which has really expanded in the last 2 or 3 years.
when we look ahead to Gastech 2023, it's coming at a very important time, crucial time. It looks like we've new news every year, and it's more important and more crucial than ever. But why do you think this year, is so important, and where do you think the big highlights are going to be?
I think the big highlights, firstly, will be discussions around energy security and the long-term implications of the sort of structural change in the market that we've seen in the last 12, 18 months. I think there'll be a very strong discussion around the need for industry to lead more around energy transition and really lean in on that, and with that, the role of carbon capture technologies and the investment in a very large scale infrastructure required for large scale carbon capture, which is essentially a replication of the entire existing LNG industry within the next decade. And finally, that is with Singapore, the new climate tech stream, which is part of the Gastech agenda, will help pull together the emerging technologies and insights from players around the world that are active in that space. So I'm very much looking forward to that new addition to the conference.
Yes, indeed. There's so much going on at the minute that, a lot to look at, a lot to digest, but again, an awful lot to look forward to. So I'm delighted that you've actually taken the time to give us that quick update. Nick Milne from the Macquarie Group, thank you so much.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in September.